On the third show of Christmas, your podcast gave to thee 3 life tips, 2 crazy laughs, and unverified stats that must be. On the third show of Christmas, your podcast gave to thee 3 life tips. Now let's set the record straight real quick about something. I'm offering you these 3 life tips from the perspective that, hey, I've made a bunch of mistakes myself, and I've learned a lot of these lessons along the way, so maybe I could save you some of the time and cut right into the lesson, okay? So if you're feeling any kind of, hey, who's this fucking guy trying to bestow wisdom upon me, then I'll politely ask you to change your tude. Capiche? Cool. Life tip number 1. Think about it, smell it, and go after it. As is often or maybe always the case, this life tip is recycled from an elder of mine. Shout out to the legend John Niemeyer, by the way. When Johnny first shared this tidbit of experience with me back in 1998, 14-year-old me thought it was sexual in nature. But if I'm being honest, everything was sexual in nature to 14-year-old me. And even to John, he probably knew this phrasing was such that my hair trigger hormones were likely to receive this advice better than a more blandly worded iteration. Think about it, smell it, and go after it. I'll save you the description of what I had initially thought Mr. Niemeyer meant by this so we can dive right into what it really means. So many of us spend too much time thinking things over. Maybe we're trying to find the exact perfect timing to start a new endeavor, or maybe we're convinced that we're not quite there yet ourselves, that we need to study more. Maybe we need to pay for some training or buy better equipment, but what we all know is that these long, drawn-out doubts are simply excuses to not start something. We've been trained to think conservatively as a means of self-preservation, to defer to experts by way of humility. So by the time we're fully formed humans with adult brains, many of us have lost that can-do spirit that makes confident little kids so inspiring. And that's got to be the biggest difference between you and I today versus you and I when we were 8 years old, right? Remember wanting to be in the NFL or aspiring to be an astronaut or a magician or a business owner or something? I do. But I had lost all those childhood aspirations for like 15 years of my life. And during those 15 years, I could feel the little me inside of myself shrinking and softening and eventually going all but mute. I had resigned myself to living an unsatisfying existence that I was still kind of enjoying, but that I wasn't really proud of. Think about it, smell it, and go after it. When I finally pulled the trigger on this podcast project, when I finally stopped worrying about all the reasons I couldn't do a podcast, I set that miniature, invisible, and silent kid's voice within me free. Buck teeth, bowl cut, prepubescent midsection, and all. I had thought about it, step 1 in Johnny's saying, for far too long. For years and years and years and a ton of booze and so many bad decisions, and once I stopped thinking, it was time to smell it. In other words, don't dive into something rotten. But if it doesn't reek something awful, then what are you waiting for? Go for it. And that's what I did. And now, guess what? I feel like a kid again. And that's made all the difference. All because I thought about it, I smelled it, and I went after it. Life tip number 2. Ditch the dead weight. Show of hands. Who here has people in their lives who provide nothing to you but strife and concern? Oh, a couple in the back there. I'm not saying that these people have always been anchors to you, but they might be now. So if you're putting energy into a relationship or a task or a job that's not rewarding you back whatsoever, then it's probably time to move on. No hard feelings, no animosity, no deletion of your past memories or your past love or even your current love for these people. It's just time. To everything, there is a season, and this is no exception. Surround yourself with people who are just as willing to support your aspirations as they are to call you out on your bullshit. So I'm not suggesting sycophancy here. We do all need to hear some straight dope on occasion. But you know what we need to hear even more of? Love and support and excitement around how we are spending our time. Only you are responsible for your experience in life. So why not find a cast of characters who can see your vision like it's their own and help you make it happen? Give your energy to your friends. Share your vision with your friends. Ask your friends about their goals and their visions and their ideas of the future. And if you walk out of those interactions feeling bad, then start to consider ditching the dead weight. Life tip number 3, force spontaneity. Did you know that one single idea is responsible for nearly all the world's disappointment? Expectations. Have you ever planned a vacation and then spent the next 3 months fantasizing about how it's going to go, who you'll see, how you'll look, how you'll feel? Have you ever read a movie critic's rave review of a new flick and earmarked it as a surefire classic that will endure the test of time? Have you ever talked to someone on Tinder for weeks on end, building up your idea of who this person is before you actually meet them? Of course you have, you saucy minxes. But look, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. How could your real experiences ever hold a candle to the idealistic hopes you created in your head in advance? It's fruitless. Be spontaneous. Deprive yourself the opportunity to spend ruminating on how great it's all going to go. Remember life tip number 1, think about it, smell it, and go after it? Well, tip number 3 is just a continuation of that. Stop waiting around, stop filling your heads of how it might go, and just go. Experience whatever it is as it actually is, and not in contrast to how it might have been. On the third show of Christmas, your podcast gave to thee 3 life tips, 2 crazy laughs, and unverified stats that must be.